I don't think it's ever happened before, but one day after the Shadow and the Blade trailer dropped, I can already bring you gameplay. And here, at the edge of the known world, where the Chaos Gods touch the mortal plane, where blood flows in rivers and the hills are alive with the spirits of Isengard and the Neverborn, comes the Deathmaster, the chief assassin of Clan Eshin, and his maelstrom of blades, leading his claw pack to war once more. Always sneaking, always stabbing, the ninja rats are coming, but a hero stands in their way. REPANSE de LYONESSE, the Warhammer Joan of Arc, leads her crusading army against the Skaven, blessed by the lady herself, as death globes rain from the sky in a torrent of noxious fumes. And the battle pilgrims of Bretonnia will have a brutal beaten zone to cover before they can even taste melee combat. But all the while, the portals of chaos are stirring. Something watches, waiting to claw its way into the mortal plane. So welcome to the Shadow and the Blade. Got 2 battles for you all today, so if you're liking the first one, stick around for the second, both with REPANSE de LYONESSE, who I will probably call Joan of Arc for the rest of the video, and with Snitch the Deathmaster. Can't show any Dark Elves today, but soon they will join the party. So for Joan of Arc, the Sword of Lyon is one of the strongest combat steroids we've seen yet. Plus 40 melee attack, plus 50% AP and weapon damage, and the lore for it is the exact same story as the one where Joan of Arc finds Charlemagne's sword buried beneath a nearby chapel. Her halo of maidenly wrath blinds enemies and deals damage. Fleur-de-Lis banner grants plus 9 melee attack and defense in an AoE, and she's got 20 bonus versus infantry, so her job on foot is to try and outduel the Deathmaster with the help of Felix Jaeger, who is also joining us with Helping Hand and the Blood Oath regen when they're in melee. Very cool. Got a bunch of peasant archers, foot squires, and battle pilgrims in an infantry swarm, and on Overwatch flies the Hippogriff Knights and Henri Le Massif, less than 1,500 gold on a hippo with Guardian Aura and Charmed Shield, which is an amazing value unique to Joan of Arc subfaction, because there are no other paladins in the game who can ride on one. But for the Skaven, across the blood-drenched hills, this is where things get real kooky. Got a Clan Eshin Sorcerer with concealment bombs, something I think most Eshin units have now. I don't think the Gutter Runners or Night Runners do, but everything else does. Toxic Rain lore attribute, Armor of Darkness, and a stationary and super cool looking vortex called Black Whirlwind. We'll be seeing a lot of that this game. Now, for Snitch himself, his sigil prevents enemy lords or heroes from moving for 7 seconds. His whirl of weeping blades forms a vortex of daggers directly around his body, and his cloak of shadows lowers melee defense and leadership in an AoE. So the game plan here is simple. Use the assassin with Rival Hide Talisman and Assassin's Trophy to stack buffs and debuffs, get them roided up like crazy, send in both assassins and all their stuff popped, and burst down a high-value lord or hero once they're pinned by the sigil and cannot move. It can be a pretty crazy combo, and hopefully it'll be one that Felix and Joan can deal with. Now, Warp Grinders are super weird and super cool. They have horrible melee stats, super high weapon strength. You can bring them for their seismic abilities, and that's really what they bring to the table. It nets anything around them when you pop that seismic ability, just pins them in place, hits them and the enemy, and then you hit them with the Warp Quake, which deals damage in AoE only to enemies. So you effectively, if you bring 4 of them, have a bunch of nets that completely stop enemy cavalry aggression. So the Triads and the Deathmasters and the Death Runners can all jump on top of them and deal damage without getting charged. So he has 4 Warp Grinders this game, and that means a lot of nets, and they're all on cooldown too, so it's not like a limited use ability. As soon as it's off cooldown again, you can use it again. So it's going to make using cavalry pretty hard, and it's a big reason why I didn't bring a lot of cav this game in the first place. And the final unit of note are the Avalanche Mortars, the most damaging Skaven weapon team in the game at 1,400 gold. They delete blobs of infantry. Deathglow Mortars hurt, man. They hurt a lot. We're going to have to keep an eye out on them all game long. So the first thing I have to do as the Crusaders of Lyon here is cross the beaten zone under mortar and Giselle fire. Purposely did not bring a lot of heavy cav because I was expecting to see a bunch of Warp Grinders, and indeed that's what we will be seeing. 2 of them positioned on each flank. And you just really don't want your knights getting seismic snared, then jumped by a bunch of armor-sundering ninja rats. It's very bad for their health, and more than that, you can also pin them in place and allow the Deathglow Mortars to tear them apart as well. So it was just not going to be a good game for a lot of Grail Knights or Questing Knights or any of that stuff. I think the Peasant Swarm can actually be very good against the Skaven in general, because you're not giving up too many high-value targets. Foot Squires and Battle Pilgrims will both trade pretty well into Skaven infantry, and so the idea here is just get them into melee, swarm the front line, and then Joan of Arc and Felix Jaeger can go into the duel and hopefully win it. Now, if they lose that duel, it's gonna be bad. Peasants will rout like crazy. Foot squires, battle pilgrims are still gonna fall into that category. But my god, they are getting shish kebabbed. Just deleted from the game, looking like July 4th out there, destroyed by this Giselle, rattling gun, and mortar fire. And yeah, those avalanche mortars, the death globes, the purple balls coming in from on high, it's pretty nasty what they can do to an infantry unit. You saw the foot squires and the battle pilgrims both get, I mean, went from full HP down to 0 almost immediately. So they're pretty much already out of the fight, which feels pretty bad. Now, the peasant archers are in range of the weapon teams, and they can kill most of them reasonably quickly with some focus fire, except for maybe the Giselles, while the battle pilgrims push up in the center and start clearing the way through all the clan rats. And the hippogriff goons are on the hunt overhead. Now, hippogriff knights are a bit risky here, but they are mobile terror. They can kill monsters and infantry, and they always get to choose their engagements, which is nice. But here, with 4 warp grinders, all those rattlings, and the nets anytime they land, they have to be pretty careful, and they are getting suppressed by the rattling guns up top. Looks like Deathmaster's going right for the peasant archers. Got those daggers ready for some cutting, hop, skip, and a jump right on over to the archers in the rear. And hippos notice it. They will start moving backwards, while the Eshin sorcerer in the center holds down the line. But yeah, it looks like the Deathmaster is already on top of the peasants, and his blades will go to work here, and it's going to get nasty. Every single time he makes it into melee, he's going to carve stuff up. He's got 70 melee attack and armor sundering, which is super nice, but the hippos are going to go back and try to deal with them. With a maelstrom opening up on the other side, that is the black whirlwind spell. Looks amazingly cool, and that vortex is just going to suck up everything in the AoE. And I think I see Saruman and Grima Wormtongue in the back on top of the tower up there, watching everything from on high. But the foot squires and the Skaven that are caught inside just going to get melted apart by that stationary vortex. It's a good one. Both sides will rout. Skaven don't care about friendly fire, man. And the hippos are on top of Snitch, and they're going to start trying to kill him, but the whirlwind of weeping blades will start catching them out, and it's actually surprisingly good against monstrous cavalry and flyers too. Look at that. Immediately, one attack, and the whirl is enough to just bring one model down immediately, while Joan of Arc gets in and starts cleaving the heads off these Death Runner infantry. And I can't stress it enough, the synergy between her and Felix is incredible. They are a match made in heaven. If I'm shipping a Warhammer couple, it's them. Together, they both get easily over 100 melee attack versus infantry with their buffs. They've got the 44% ward save, the blood oath regen. Seriously, it is a spicy combo. But the Skaven assassins are pretty similar in their gooning potential, so that should be a very interesting duel to watch. Henri getting pinned by the seismic snares, but still being a major annoyance to the Skaven weapon teams. And Rival Hide Talisman popped in the duel with Snitch screaming in from behind, and the Bretonnian lords are on an island unto themselves. Everything around them, all their supporting infantry has routed. She has 0 melee attack right now, hit by both the Skaven debuffs, but immediately Helping Hand and all of her buffs, Sword of Leon, is gonna skyrocket her melee prowess and give her the DPS she needs to take this fight. And that's exactly why I brought them in combo. I knew that Rival Hide Talisman and Assassin's Trophy was going to be a big issue for them. Felix Jaeger is a great counterplay to that kind of build. But the Hippogriff Knights are going in, and that should really turn things in the Bretonnians' favor and give Felix Jaeger and REPANSE de LYONESSE the space they need to do what they need to do. But meanwhile, Giselles and rattling guns firing in, and all that armor-piercing fire is a big deal. It is hurting those large single entities, and they really just don't want to stick around in that fight for too long. But if they go in and close the gap and land, then more seismic snares could end up being an issue. One of the assassins just routed, almost dead, and shattered now. Assassin is out of the fight, and the Deathmaster down past half HP, but the Hippogriffs are really starting to get torn apart by all that ranged fire. Henri is still alive, still fighting to himself here, and just causing so much havoc in and amongst all the weapon teams. The more warp grinders are closing in, and he's got to be careful, because even though they have really bad melee stats, their weapon damage is sky high, and they will hurt with all that AP if they get a surround off and kind of pin you in place. That dynamic duo has taken on all comers so far. Eshin Sorcerer, you have come to the wrong neighborhood. You should make like Snitch and get the hell out of there. Make like a tree and branch. Because if you go back in and fight Felix Jaeger and REPANSE de LYONESSE, you're just going to get trash canned by their bonus versus infantry. And I think the Deathmaster is doing the exact right thing at this point in the battle. Kind of hit and run attacks. Noticing they're getting swarmed by armor sundering units. Go in, get an attack off, stab them in the back, and then run the hell away before they have a chance to bring their attacks to bear. And you can see that Felix is dropping low. Joan is dropping pretty low. With the support of the Death Runners, this is maybe a fight they can take. Whirling Blades pot. I'm going to be honest, I have no idea if that's good versus single entities. I just have no clue whatsoever. But he's now by himself. Death Runners moved away. Hippo's landing. He is barely going to escape and extricate himself in that situation. But the infantry doing very well for Clan Eshin, and there's very little support left on the field for the Bretonnians. It's mostly coming down to the Lords and Heroes. The Knights of the Fleur-de-Lis are in the background. They will be coming back over the crest of that hill to support. They were running interference against the Death Runners. We're trying to run down the archers, but the Hippos, there's only 2 models left. They just got slaughtered by those Warp Grinders, and the cavalry is coming in to help. It's a situation where holding them in reserve might work out pretty well, but that dynamic duo is on their last legs. Low leadership, surrounded by infantry, and they were not able to strike the head off that snake. The Deathmaster still lives. That's a problem. Riders of Rohan, charging valiantly to the defense of Gondor, just stop dead in their tracks. Net hits them. Avalanche Mortars hit them. Black Whirlwind gonna hit them. And my brave knights, who tried so hard, who got so far, in the end, it doesn't even matter. They get honey dip dunked from the free throw line, sent to La Basura, trash canned, and it's ripperonis to them. Beautiful play to shut down the cavalry. Another tool in the Skaven toolkit. One I'm still not used to playing around yet, evidently, and they're just gone. Really well played right there. But Henry Le Massif coming in, and this is where those late game single entity terrors can just slaughter stuff. I mean, the Skaven infantry, it's not known for holding out particularly well against big monsters. They rout, they come back, they rout, they come back, but that gives Joan of Arc and Felix Jaeger the time they need to regen. And Joan, she's routing, but if everything else is routing, they can't run her off the battlefield, and that will allow her to recover. Snitch is still alive. He's actually going back into that fight. This could be super important. If Henry Le Massif is able to kill him, that could be the game. But it looks like the Deathmaster is going to terror rout, and the infantry going to start cycling back into the fight in waves. So it's far from over, because Joan is still routing, and she's routing towards the Skaven for some reason. I have no idea why. Whirl of Blades goes down again, but the terror routs are really starting to kick in, and this is where you have having like Immunopsych in an AoE would be so useful. That Blight Scab's Plague Pack or something like that would be so good, but yeah, you don't really want to bring it against Bretonnia because you don't need all that armor piercing on your infantry. And Henry Le Massif is going to start putting the team on his back, though, put the game in the clutches of his Hippogriff, but he's pretty low at this point too. Felix will be able to give him some regen, and that HQ, that command center for the Bretonnians, is starting to look pretty strong as Joan continues to wade in and slice the heads off all these weapon teams. But yeah, the game plan here is do not let the Skaven regroup. Do not let them swarm around their Deathmaster. Do not let them get back in the fight. Make sure all these weapon teams run and the balance bar shifting in the Bretonnians' favor. And it looks like it might be a little bit, insurmountable for Clan Eshin at this point. Yet another seismic quake, stopping my cavalry at the moment of impact. You can't get anywhere near those Warp Grinders if you want to kill them with cav. You just have to ignore them, go somewhere else. But when you bring 4 of them, you have all your flanks covered. And so I was super glad I did not invest a lot in cavalry in this game, because if I had, I think those seismic quakes would have just completely destroyed me. Instead, let the single entities do their stuff, let the terror kick in, and it was barely enough. As Death Runners charge into melee, they're getting cloven in two, and Felix and Joan of Arc together, too strong, with Henry Le Massif in support. It really did just come down to the leadership bastions for Bretonnia here. And the infantry swarm was the right call. It was definitely the right call. The Foot Squires and the Battle Pilgrims, they made their cost back for sure, except for the first 2 that got completely deleted by all that mortar fire. We'll put it in double fast forward, and we'll get ready to do some analysis and then move on to game number 2, which will be the same 2 factions, but some very different builds. So, a couple things we learned that game. The Deathmaster Assassin Goon Squad can quickly isolate and slice and dice Lords and Heroes. Kind of what you'd expect. That's what their role on the tabletop would be. That's what their role in the lore is. It's what they do here. But there are ways for Foot Lords to counter that, and Repance and Felix are that perfect storm to do it. That is a rom-com I want to see. the adventures of a hot French waifu with a bowl cut, and her super strong infantry blending potential. But she needs help. She needs support from Felix in this kind of duel. Even with all her combat steroids, she would have died in seconds without the regen and ward save from Felix, which is nothing new. I mean, he's been making Footlords viable for the Dwarfs, Empire, and Bretonnia since they launched, so that makes sense. We learned the Deathmaster can solo Hippogriff Knights or Pegasus Knights with Swarm of Blades, and presumably other cavalry units as well, if they completely surround him. Probably a bad idea for that cavalry because it'll hit all their models and probably deal a crap load of damage. Might be worthy of testing, but over there, we saw it happen in that last battle. Killed a model immediately with one attack and just popping that spell. So that's 100% worth it. And we learned the Avalanche Mortars pack a serious wallop from downtown. Over 120 kills on Foot Squires and Battle Pilgrims, which is amazing. I mean, you love to see it. So Henri Le Massif is wonderful value for his cost too, but you have to pick his sub-faction to get him, so it does kind of make it clear what your game plan is if you pick it, which frankly I think is a fair trade-off. If you want to get essentially a Bretonnian Lord in a hero slot, you got to give away some information, so maybe some mind games to be had there, but I like that. And most impressive thing the entire game, I think, was the Warp Grinder, Black Whirlwind, and the Deathglow Mortar Alley-oop together that just deleted those Knights of the Fleur-de-Lis. I mean, it was disgusting. It was super well played, but just not quite enough to steal it from Repans de Mayonnaise. But that is not all. We're going into Game 2 now in the deserts of the Tomb Kings in the Valley of the Dead, where Clan Eshin and the Bretonnian Crusaders will cross swords once more and battle for supremacy. The Assassin Deathmaster duo have a new coat of poison on their blades. I'm addicted to them. Don't they know that they're toxic? And Ishka's Triads are coming out to play as well. Gang's all here. Vistrin's Death Squad, Death Runners. Yeah, we're going to be rolling deep with Eshin goodies in this one. But once again, Repulse leads her crusade and offers her sword as favor for the lady. That is a great animation. It gets me hype every single time. Prayers before battle. May the sword of Lyon strike down the heathen rats. So yeah, that Cloak of Shadow is going to be a big component here in Charnel Valley. There's a choke point up ahead I want to use to bog down the Bretonnian Cav. Spells and Whirling Blades thin him out a bit. Cloak should help keep him survivable when he YOLOs into the front ranks to get the Bretonnians all blobbed up around him. Got the Avalanche Mortars again. Cliff should provide decent protection for them, while Ishka's Triads use their armor-sundering halberds to protect the back line. This is a weird unit. A fast, low HP halberd. Works very well in tandem with Warp Grinders, who pin the Cav when they run in and butcher it. And Doppelgang is unique to this ROR. Summons a clone unit like Alathanar, and they have Invis Bombs for being sneaky. By the way, special campaign units are now available in custom battle for a lot of factions. Bringing the Death Dealers in this one, Forbidden Workshop unit, but obviously you can't use them in ranked. It's just a fun showcase battle, so I figured it'd be fun to use them here. But the Death Squad have Duck and Weave, giving them melee defense, speed, and physical resist, alongside a hefty bonus versus infantry. So they will be pretty useful for chunking through their way through a bunch of Bretonnian peasants, but maybe not so good if they get charged by Grail Knights or heavy cavalry. We'll see how that one goes. Over on the other side, it's a relatively common Bretonnian build with Repulse de Lyonesse at the helm, and she's rocking her Sword of Lyon alongside that halo of Maidenly Wrath, stricken with Divine Fury and ready to channel it into every single strike of that deadly two-handed blade. Love her model. She is super cool, and with all the combat steroids she gets, she is no joke in melee. If Snitch or someone gets caught out by her, they are going to get carved apart by that large bonus versus infantry and that sword, which can get her up to like 660 weapon strength easily. And on horseback, she can pick and choose her engagements too, so definitely got to be worried about her. Now, the game plan here is relatively simple. Use the choke point to funnel the Bretonnians into it, blow them apart with the Deathglow Bombardier Mortars, and use those halberds to protect the back line against all the Grail Knights. Again, you do not want your Eshin Triads getting caught out in a charge, but we do have a Warp Grinder in the center to block charges, and these mortars are going to be so good in this choke point alongside the Death Dealer Rattling Guns, which are just going to tear apart the peasants in the front ranks. It's just not even fair. Scythe in half by those opening volleys, and the mortars hopefully will be able to catch a few of these Bretonnian units overlapped on top of each other. That's where the real carnage can begin. Now, Bretonnia probably not going to send too much cavalry up the center, not really where they want to be, but they're going to have to send the infantry there because that's where this battle is going to take place. Deathmaster, channel that jutsu, styling on him with the Naruto dash, and the triple blades will find their marks in peasant necks. Just let him do his thing, like the Hashashin of old, just way more badass because, you know, he's evil Master Splinter. That is so much fun to watch. And we're gonna try to catch that invis, like, teleport move over and over again, because that is one of the coolest animations they've done. Amazing. Grail Knights trying to push through, and the Bretonnians are getting in the back. Knights of the Realm, clean charge into the rattling guns. The Eshin Triads a little bit slow on the uptake. Clan Rats got committed. That flank got kind of inundated and swarmed by cavalry and kind of left a gap open in the center, which is not good. What is good is the Grail Knights are completely surrounding the Assassin and the Deathmaster, which is what we want because we have a couple spells that are very good for deleting that kind of blob. But first, Armor of Darkness to make them actually tanky and survivable so they don't just roll over and die. Then, ideally, layer it up with a bunch of Mortar and Rattling Fire and Overcast, Black Whirlwind for a Cyclone of Destruction in the center. And the nice thing about this spell, if your opponent sees it late, functions like Pit of Shade. So it slows enemies down, makes it difficult to escape from ground zero. And my god, is that a thing of beauty. Overcast for additional AP damage. Grail Knights notice it, try to escape, and giblets flying everywhere. Get caught in that spell, you're gonna have a bad day. And the Cav took a tremendous amount of damage, and then we got some mortar shots on top of it too. So, I mean, the bait was taken right there. He was thinking, alright, I see the Eshin Assassin, I see the Deathmaster, they have 30 armor base, they're easy to kill, but no, they're not when they've got 90 armor, and they're small single entities that have a low profile. Rattling guns destroying the Knights of the Realm, but the cavalry has gotten in and amongst the weapon teams quite a bit this game. Grail Knights surrounding Deathmaster Snitch again, and here he goes with those whirlwind of blades. Here I go, killing again, slicing them all up, dicing them all up, maelstrom of daggers, and that killed a bunch of cavalry, so that's what I'm saying. That spell is good at killing high-value targets, like Hippogriff Knights, like Grail Knights. They surrounded him, they got sliced and diced to pieces. Beautiful. Really fun to see that thing work the way it does, because that's what you want to see. If you're going to send him into a really scary, precarious position, you want to see some trade-off and some value make it worth it in that scenario. Certainly did there. But with that said, he hasn't come out of this without a scratch. I mean, he's kind of been thrown to the wolves this battle. Debuffing the damsel, got her off the field, and now Joan of Arc is smacking the assassin around. They've been hurt by all their fights with the Grail Knights, and they're both pretty low in HP. Together, though, look at Joan of Arc's HP just plummet when she gets stabbed a couple times by the assassin and by the Deathmaster in a 1v1 duel. And she doesn't have the support of Felix Jaeger in this game. No helping hand, no ward save, no regen. She has to retreat or she's gonna die in that duel. And the Triads swarming in, they have their armor sundering, they're blocking off the choke point, making it hard for the Grail Knights to get around. And in the back, the Knights of the Realm who did make it there are just getting torn up. Suppression, lowering their speed, they have nowhere to go. The entire formation just rended down, and they're gonna collapse in a bloody heap on the desert floor. Triads blocking the rear, making sure that the cavalry can't get a hammer and anvil off, and the battle pilgrims charging in, foot squires charging in, all the infantry trying to get in there and just cause whatever damage they can. But the balance bar is shifting heavily in Eshin's favor, and it's looking like that pretty risky play with the assassin and with the Deathmaster was worth it. Just send them into the middle and destroy the blobs with mortar fire and with the Black Whirlwind, which is definitely my favorite spell of what I've used so far. Really fun to see that thing in action. With that said, this game was not as competitive as the last one. Wasn't really meant to be. This one was more for fun. It was our warm-up game for the day. And we're just saying, like, all right, let's try stuff out, see what's good, see what's bad. And, I mean, it worked. It definitely worked. It's not exactly what you're going to be seeing on a tournament play, but that's okay, right? Like, it doesn't always have to be super competitive. I think in this case, you guys want to see Clan Eshin get some serious work done, and they definitely did in this battle. First game, very competitive, very close, more realistic builds. This one, a little bit more memey, and with a few more decapitations, that is going to be the end of the battle. That'll seal it. Clan Eshin does its thing, baby. So, impressions from my game so far. Lore of Stealth seems like it will thrive in campaign. Lots of great ways to delete blobs, but with no summons and no cheap damage dealers, I'm not sure how often we'll see it competitively. Clan Eshin had a pretty bad win rate across the 10 or so games I've played so far, but that doesn't really surprise me. It's nowhere near a large enough sample size for one. People like to draw conclusions based on 1 or 2 games, and even 10 isn't really enough. You can look at some stats here or there, you can look at a unit and say, okay, well, I'm not sure that'll do its role the way it's meant to be done, but at the end of the day, need to play more games. And in these early games, one of the things that characterizes early access is people want to use the new units. And so they end up using these wacky builds with all new stuff, none of the old stuff, and that's something you would never see competitively because you need that stable core the rest of the roster provides. And if you're not using that, then you've got a build that is kind of maybe not one-dimensional, but doesn't have all the tools at its disposal. And we don't want to use content you've already seen before, so the focus will be on the new stuff. That's why we're bringing so much of it. I don't think full Clan Eshin builds are going to be very good overall, except in very specific scenarios. They're just too fragile, they're too easily killed, but I can definitely see a use for Warp Grinders, a Triad or 2, and the Deathmaster Assassin combo is absolutely potent at gooning up on Lords. The 7-second Sigil Snare that locks an enemy Lord or hero in place seems a bit short to me. Hard to capitalize on a net that's that short, but remember, you can concealment bomb both your Lord and your hero up to within only a handful of meters away from your target, then pin them down. So there is definitely some sniping potential there, and when you get both on target with Rival High Talisman and Assassin's Trophy, you're gonna kill that Lord super quick, which is fun. Maybe, actually, yeah, against Kolak it probably would do really well too. I mean, Armor Sundering and all that, like, it doesn't just have to work against Footlords, it can work against the bigger monsters as well. Just, they're gonna drop a bigger pounding on you too, so something to keep in mind and be cognizant of. But overall, competitively, from what I've seen, I think it's gonna be... some of the new units are good, some of them probably aren't gonna be that good. But this game isn't designed for competitive, obviously. Lords can and should be fun in their own right, and Deathmaster Snitch certainly is. I'm not sure he's going to be the best Lord in the game. I think it might be hard to pick him over someone like Skrolk. For example, think about Skrolk, you get that Liber Bubonicus, you get the Rod of Corruption and the ability to nuke single entities and AoEs. Like, he calls himself the Deathmaster, but he certainly doesn't have all the killing potential someone like Skrolk does. That said, again, not designed purely for competitive. He's fun, and he fills the role he should, and he's a blast to play. Got some really cool and very thematic abilities, and fills his niche and role pretty well. I'm really liking Repance de Lyonesse too. Great model on her, and some serious dueling potential out of her. One of my favorite campaigns in Age of Empires 2 is Joan of Arc. I think her story is amazing. So to see her make it into Warhammer, even if she's like 500 years old, is pretty dope. And she opens the door for a lot of other free LC Lords as well. I don't think anyone thought a Bretonnian Lord would be coming with this update. She was a crazy pick. I'd like to see some more out of left field like that one, as long as they're done well. So, hope you guys enjoyed this look at the Shadow and the Blade DLC. So much more content coming very soon. Be sure to hit subscribe, hit that like button below if you enjoyed. Stay a while, and keep checking back often for more, because it's on like Donkey Kong. I got the product, the Lakers beat the Supersonics, and there is so much good stuff coming very soon. See you next time. Indie Pride, signing out for now. Have a good one, guys.